Hello, Bude friends and family. Hi, Mum, if you're watching. I'm really sorry that I'm not there in person for the Bude Earth Festival. Obviously, I would much rather be there outside the castle instead of here in my lounge in Bristol. I would, were it not for coronavirus, be joining you surfing badly at Summerleys, which I tend to always do along with the other weekend warriors when I come down, hanging out with Ian in the cabin, watching my son get sick, eating disgusting amounts of waffles at Rosie's, walking down from Puffle down to Northcote Beach to enjoy the wild elements there, all the things that I love doing when I'm in Bude, and hanging out with my mum, of course. And I'm sorry I won't be hearing other people's talks too. I really would love to have an update from Avril, so I'll be tuning in and watching her talk. And Satish as well, always such a pleasure. And I was actually supposed to be going from the Bude Earth Festival on up to Heartland 2 days later for to give a talk at Resurgence. But anyway, here we are. I'm talking to you virtually. And it's still really lovely to be able to join you and speak to you, at least in some way, and we'll all do again, probably in person at some point. So I was going to be doing a little talk about City to Sea's campaigns, a bit of an update on the refill campaign, which obviously has got its roots there in Bude, but also talking about my book. So my book, here it is, How to Save the World for Free, came out last October. So I did have a bit of a book tour planned for this spring. Obviously that's not happened, but still managing to do a few online talks here and there. And the course of the sort of talk, which obviously I'm not going to talk to you about an hour, I'm probably only going to talk to you for about 15, 20 minutes now. But we were going to I would have given you the whole kind of journey of City to Sea and then what inspired me to write the book. But I feel like I'll maybe save that for when we're in person, and I'll share with you a little bit of an update on our campaigns at City to Sea, but really just some practical tips that you can do whilst at home, still on lockdown. Obviously, lockdown measures are easing slightly, so you might be able to go for that socially distanced walk on the beach now with a friend, whereas I don't think you could do that before. But there may still be some space in your life perhaps, or you may have been thinking about what you can do to help save the world at this time, how to green your quarantine. So I'll share 14 ways in which you can go green or hone your sustainable credentials whilst you're at home. And I think that'll be about it. So City to Sea began really back in 2015. I ran a crowdfunding campaign back in 2014 to do something about plastic pollution. I became aware of the problem with plastic, not because of my love of the ocean. Oh, no. It was not that at all, because I actually was completely terrified of the sea until I started campaigning on its behalf. I came across the videos of the albatross chicks, and it was through being incredibly moved and upset at the plight of the baby albatross, so the Laysan albatross out in the Midway Islands, that we will have a lot of us will have seen those images of those chicks with their bellies full of plastic. And that for me was the catalysing moment when I knew, despite having a full-time job in telly, I knew that I needed to do something to try and help those chicks. It wasn't really at the time to help the ocean, as I said. I really didn't have a relationship with it at the time. So I got on that journey, really, starting with a crowdfunder in 2014 with a music video called Burden. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend you go and have a look at it on YouTube. It's called Burden. See me doing my pop star thing. Although, funnily enough, I'm not a pop star. So it didn't go viral and change the world. I think I raised £17.50 something for Surfers Against Sewage. That's going to change the world, isn't it? And although I'm teasing myself and laughing at that, I think it was a stepping stone for me. It was the first step towards doing something. The pain that I felt of seeing the suffering of the albatross chicks, I had to convert that into some kind of action. And living in the city, for me, that wasn't like going out and doing a beach clean, or for me, it was like, well, what can I do from here using the skills that I have? Skills, you can decide when you watch the video if you agree that they are skills or not. So on from the crowdfunder, I then decided that I could probably do more than raise £17 for a charity, started conversations in Bristol, and from there City to Sea was born. Fast forward 5 years, and we're a team of around 30 staff in our offices just on the harbour side in Bristol. We've been running award-winning international campaigns, stopping hundreds of tons of plastic from entering the oceans every year, stopped over 100 million plastic bottles through the refill campaign from going into circulation. We've had over 250,000 downloads of our app, which is the free refill app. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've got it on your phone, but if you haven't, give it a download, see what you think of it. And yeah, it's been a pretty amazing journey. Who would have thought that it would have ended up being the organisation it has become today? And we're lucky to have a great team of people and some great partners that we're working with that help us survive and thrive and help us do the campaign work which we were set up to do. So that's City to Sea, and obviously I could go into that in a lot more detail, but you can look up City to Sea online or refill.org.uk if you want to hear more about that. Personally, after sort of 5 years, after maybe sort of 4 years of talking about plastic, I felt like I wanted to change the record. Am I allowed to say that? I'm good at starting things. I'm not so good at seeing them through. But luckily, we have a fantastic CEO at City to Sea now, Rebecca Burgess, who is leading the organisation and doing some great work, which allowed me to do what I love the most, which is write. And I felt that we had this incredible sort of army of plastic pollution fighters, campaigners, and that we could take those supporters, those campaigners on a journey and start looking at the other things that is going wrong in our world. So start looking at the environmental crisis that we're facing. So not just plastic pollution, but climate breakdown and plastic's relationship to climate breakdown and consumerism, and generally the ecological emergency that we're facing. And I think in 2018, when the IPCC report came out, telling us that we had 12 years to avoid irreversible ecological collapse from climate breakdown, I thought, okay, let's see if we can mobilise this incredible audience and of supporters and campaigners, and sort of shift gears a little bit. And also that year, it was either 2018 or 2019, that I discovered that we'd lost half the world's wildlife in my lifetime. So in the past 40 years at that point, we'd lost half the world's wildlife. And that, for me, that statistic just completely floored me. I thought, if we've lost half the world's wildlife in my lifetime, what's the world going to look like when I'm 80? What's it going to look like for my grandkids? And in a very tangible way, like, I do not want this world to not have any wildlife. That's just absolutely catastrophic. Losing half of it is catastrophic. So at that point, I decided I wanted to write a book, and that's when How to Save the World for Free was born. I actually came up with the idea for it on a plane, ironically, on my way back from a conference in Athens about tap water, and I had the idea. It came back, was really busy with work. And then 2 weeks later, I had an email from a publisher saying, we're looking to publish a book on the environment. We think maybe you'd be a good person to write one. Of which I had to then pinch myself and ask if that was actually for real. And I was like, well, actually, as it happens, I've just written out the chapter summaries for a new book I'd like to write. So that was Lawrence King Publishing, and they've been fantastic to work with. And I'm announcing it here, and I don't think I'm even allowed to announce it yet, but the paperback version of this is coming out in 2021. which is exciting news, a little exclusive for you there. So, so the book came out, and just to sort of talk a little bit about the book, the first sort of fifth of the book talks about the 7 things that we need to save. And my reason for that, it's a very practical book. So it starts off talking about what's going wrong on the earth. And then it goes into 12 chapters of how to save the world while you eat, while you drink, while you play, while you travel, while you have sex, while you vote, while you bank, those sort of things. Or hopefully all of the things we do throughout our lives. As someone described it recently, everything you need to change the world, from how you bank to how you bonk, which I thought was quite fun. So at the beginning of the book, I do go into the heavy stuff, the 7 things we need to save being oceans and seas, forests, the atmosphere, rivers and ice, soil, plants and animals, and us as a species. And it was a really difficult thing to do, actually, to, I'd been immersed in plastic pollution, not literally, but been immersed in the subject for 4 years. And to have to then research and read and really dive into the other aspects of the ecological emergency was really harrowing. Everything from the degradation of soil to deforestation, to all kinds of pollution and obviously climate breakdown. I did feel for about a month after writing that section that I kind of lost the will to live, actually. It was the closest I feel I've ever come to depression, because there is such an urgency and such a huge scale of environmental destruction that was hard to do. So I definitely can feel, and see why people can get very overwhelmed and how they can experience despair and eco-anxiety. But I moved through that, and hopefully, dove to those depths to bring back some pearls, so that people can get a grasp of it in a serious way. But then I hopefully through the book carry them in a playful way, full of positive actions and things that we can all do to make a difference as individuals. But also there are ways in the book that we can amplify our impact, and it does talk about system change and our political systems, and our financial systems as well, and different models and different examples of those around the world which seem to work better. And so I will move on from that and share with you 14 ways in which you can save the world for free, I think. I can't remember if it's free. Obviously the book is How to Save the World for Free. It's not actually free. People have called me up on that a few times. It's like, yes, I know. You need to invest. $12.99 is the cover price, but you can buy it for less on Amazon, but that's a bit dodgy. Don't buy it on Amazon. Buy it through Waterstones. My website, nataliefee.com/books. There's a number of online links. You can get it through WH Smith's. You can get it through Hive, which is a really cool online bookstore that donates to an independent bookstore each time you buy a book on there, so you can support your bookshop at the top of the high street, embarrassingly, whose name escapes me right now in this moment. So that's where you can find the book. I'd love you to grab a copy. I'm sorry I'm not there to sell lots of copies and sign them for you and meet you all in person. I think I might be coming down to a book festival there in October, fingers crossed, if I've got that right. So maybe we could meet then. Anyway, for now, here are some practical tips for you whilst on home, on lockdown, quarantined. And let's have a little look. So all of which you can do whilst on lockdown. Number 1, there's 14 of them. If you were supposed to be flying this year, but your flight was cancelled, add that saved flight as a pledge to the Flight Free 2020 campaign to make it count. So Flight Free is a really cool campaign, which is if you can pledge to not fly just for a year, then it's a bit like sort of doing it plastic free July. You think, oh my God, I can't possibly go plastic free. It's like impossible, but you can do it for a month, Well, a similar thing with flying. It's about raising awareness, showing people that you're committed, even just for a year, not to fly. So you can pledge to do that. You can also just pledge not to take any business flights if you fly for business. Or I think they're developing it so you can pledge to, say, not fly long haul, or maybe only do it once every 5 years or something. Anyway, flightfree.co.uk. If you aren't planning on flying this year now, add that pledge to Flight Free 2020. Now, another thing around flying, I'm kind of sandwiching this into tip 1, because it's kind of impossible for us to decide that we're just not going to fly, especially for people who have family abroad and they need to go home and look after them or visit them. So one thing that we can do is sign up to a freeride.org, where they actually campaign for a tax on air travel, a frequent flyer tax. So everyone would get one tax-free flight a year, but then after that, incrementally, you start getting taxed more. And that would really address the imbalance between, say, a family that just wants to have one sunny holiday in a year, or go and see their family, as opposed to people who have a second home and are just flying backwards and forwards every weekend. And sort of business trips as well. So a freeride.org is a really cool way to add your voice to a campaign that is lobbying and petitioning for a fair tax on air travel. That's a change we really do need to see, because aviation fuel isn't taxed. It's absolutely bonkers that it's not. That's why it's so cheap to fly. So that would be great. Okay, I'll stop now. Number 2. Don't throw away all those toilet roll tubes. So it's springtime. I don't know if you've been doing any planting or growing, but you can use your toilet roll tubes as seed pots and grow your seedlings in them. So even if you don't have a garden, you can get them together, find a little tray or something, put some compost in them and grow your own seeds, grow your herbs, or just start off your seedlings in your toilet roll, not holders, the tubes, toilet roll tubes, and then you can plant them directly into the soil, which is what I've just done with my cosmos and my parsley and things like that in the tiny little yard garden that I've got here in Bristol. And you could grow bee-friendly flowers as well. That's something else that you can do. Still on point 2 there. Number 3, so offset all the additional CO2 emissions we're now all generating from the massive increase in data from video conferencing. So since we've been home, obviously we're doing a lot more like this online, watching online video calls, Zoom calls, watching Netflix, things like that. So this all uses data, and data uses energy to produce and store, so it creates a lot more CO2. So we can offset that, and it's generally good practice to offset your carbon emissions anyway, whether you're flying or not flying. Just do a sort of audit of your carbon footprint and invest in an offsetting scheme. Not to say that sort of makes it okay for you to carry on emitting, but at least it's taking responsibility for what we are emitting whilst we're trying to reduce our emissions. So ones that I would recommend is one called Offset Earth. They're relatively new, but they sort of act as a middleman for all the gold certified schemes around the world. So Offset Earth is a great one. I think for about £4 a month you can offset your carbon emissions for the year, obviously depending on how frequently you're flying. Tree Sisters is another wonderful charity where you can help and invest and offset through their planting of tropical forests. Now, the reason tropical forests are a good thing to offset because they grow quickly, so they sequester carbon more quickly. And another one is atmosphere.de. So it's a German website that if you are flying, atmosphere.de calculates the difference between sort of releasing those CO2 emissions up in the air. I was going to be clever and say stratosphere. I think it's the stratosphere, but I might be wrong. So I'll just say up in the air, atmosphere.de. So number 4, as you'll see, I've got a combo of sensible tips and not so sensible tips here. With all this extra hand washing, we are using a lot more water. I just can't believe the amount of water we've been using. So how about you keep a bowl in your sink to catch the water as you wash your hands. Now, caveat here, as long as you're using a non-harmful, a sort of proper antibacterial soap, you probably don't want to be putting that in your garden. But if you're just using normal soap, or even better, some kind of organic soap, then just have a bowl in the sink and use that water to then put out on your flower beds or water your plants in your pots. And when it comes to the loo, if it's yellow, it's mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Another way that you can save water there. Point number 5, I don't know why I'm saying point. Number 5, if you've got some white space in your diary, block some time out to actually do some online switching. Okay, this is where we're getting serious. Switch to an ethical bank, switch to a green energy provider, and switch to an ethical pension. Now, those are 3 quite big, significant things that you can do. So switching to an ethical bank is a great thing to do, especially if you have savings, because most all high street banks are invested in fossil fuels and mining and deforestation, whereas banks that are more transparent, ethical banks like Triodos, are completely transparent about who they invest in, and they don't invest in anything which is destroying the planet. So they've got really great green credentials and they're very transparent. The cooperative, I think, are also pretty good, but generally Triodos are the best that you could switch to. Also, the sort of fintech, the newer banks like Starling and Monzo are generally better than the big banks because they're not investment banks. So they're not investing in planet destroying activities. They're just about your current account and money transferring here and there. So those are another option for you. But generally, switching banks, Triodos is sort of the greenest of the green. Switching to a green energy provider. Seriously, how many of you watching this, and it's okay because I can't see your faces because you're at home, how many of you have not yet switched energy providers? Now, there really is no excuse anymore because it's not actually more expensive to have green energy. It is if you go with Ecotricity or Good Energy, and if you can afford to pay a little bit more, not a lot, then they are the best 2 to switch to because they really are the greenest in the UK. And Octopus Energy is the cheaper one, but they are still greener than the likes of Bulb and Tonic that say they're 100% green energy, but they actually buy credits. And basically, you have to, if you want to geek out on this, check the fuel mix disclosure when you're doing your research. But if you can't be bothered to do all that and you just want to take my word for it because I've done my research, Good Energy, Ecotricity, if you can afford it, just a little bit more, support them. If not, Octopus Energy. Okay. And switching to an ethical pension. So this is something that you can do maybe when if you have a bit more time. I realise people at home with kids looking after families or loved ones who aren't very well, that you might not have more time on your hands. But you could speak to your employer and find out who your pension is invested with. And that is one way that you can have a really significant impact. If you have your own workplace pension, you can log into it and see if you can switch to an ethical fund. Nest, you can log into the Nest dashboard and literally click a button to switch it to an ethical fund. Otherwise, speak to your employer. If you've got your own pension, speak to your pension provider and find out what their ethical credentials are. Number 6, learn stuff about the environment you didn't know by watching online documentaries. So this is something that we can pretty much all do at the moment. I've got a full list of free films and links of the films that I mention in the back of my book that you can watch. I've got a watch list here. So that covers documentaries on food and fashion, oceans, climate, citizenship, politics and economics, and activism. You can see that at nataliefee.com/save the world. nataliefee.com/save the world. And so that's something you can do when you're at home if you want to get educated and inspired. Number 7, if disinfectant is in short supply and you want to go more zero waste anyway, now's the time to make your own cleaning products. Bicarb can be bought in bulk or loose from your local refill shop, which you've got one in Bude. I don't know if it's doing deliveries at the moment, but I'm sure you're all looking forward to it reopening if not. So you can use bicarb with a few drops of essential oils. Also, white vinegar is really great for cleaning. But if you just did a quick Google, or Ecosia is an eco-friendly web browser that plants trees whilst you search. So if you have a quick look on Ecosia for DIY cleaning, then you can find some recipes on there. Number 8, stay away from the shop. Support the soil and support your local growers by finding and ordering an organic veg box. Nice and simple there. We really need to protect our soil, and buying organic is one of the best ways that we can do that. Number 9, whatever you do, be a good asshole, and don't flush those wet wipes. The reason we call that, we've got one of our campaigns at City to See is called Be a Good Asshole. We worked with Andy Serkis, who played Gollum in Lord of the Rings, to do a fun narration over a video. Since the coronavirus pandemic, and especially with the people that were panic buying toilet roll, what happened was then people went out and bought more wet wipes. Wet wipes are generally 98% plastic, and people have been flushing them down the loo, which I'm sure you all know is not a good thing to be doing. I'm sure you all know very well when it comes to the loo, just flush pee, paper and poo. So yeah, don't flush those wet wipes down the loo. Number 10, remember to switch off all your electricals at the socket. Not the fridge or the freezer, obviously, to save energy and money. And you'll probably sleep better with the Wi-Fi off anyway. I know I do. Yeah, we can save, it's something like about £80 a year, between £80 and £100 a year if we just power down our telly so it's not on standby mode, our stereos, that sort of thing. So just switching everything off at night before you go to bed. Number 11, meditate often. Now, who would have thought that was a way to save the world for free? But generally, the better we feel inside, the less likely we are to A, stockpile, B, buy loads of stuff online that we don't really need, and C, get sick. So meditation has been shown to help increase immunity and your well-being. There are some really good free programs online. If you don't really know where to start with meditation, on my Instagram links, so there's the link in the bio for Instagram, which is Natalie Fee _ there's a link to a fantastic meditation program in there called Love versus Virus, run by a teacher called Bergs. So if you want that, just go onto my Instagram and look at the links in there. There's also the links to all of the things that I'm talking about from this article that I'm sharing with you. So if you go to my Instagram bio, you'll see a link, 14 ways to save the world, and you can, all the links to sort of ethical banks and the film list, things like that are on there. So, and just one more thing to say about meditation. Generally, I don't think I could survive as an activist and environmentalist without it. We have to resource ourselves when we're out there in the world, and meditation is one of the best ways to do that, to center ourselves and to establish a sense of calm and well-being, even when out there things can be very difficult. Number 12, when making those never-ending cups of tea, make sure to only boil what you need, as kettles use up a serious amount of energy. So honestly, like, how many of us would stick the kettle under the tap, whoosh, hit it on? But I know people that fill the kettle up to make one cup of tea. Like, that's such a huge waste of energy. It sounds insignificant, but it's not. You know, Pucker tea, like the lovely, delicious herbal teas, they've done a complete audit of their CO2 emissions. The biggest source of their CO2 emissions from crop to cup, I think they call it, is people overfilling their kettles and, well, people boiling their kettles. So when you take your mug over to the tap, not your kettle, and just fill up as much as you need, and then pour that into your kettle. Number 13, carve out some time at the weekend to declutter and sort cupboards. Do you know, I've still not got round to this one yet. Particularly waste electricals, which can be recycled and their precious metals recovered. So I think now, as my mum has updated me, the household, what do they call it? Household Recycling Centre in Holsworthy is now open again. So you can take your waste electricals. There's the amount of precious metals and hard to recycle plastics in those is vast. So make sure you do recycle your wee, as they call it. Clothes can be sorted too, creating a bag for charity shops or your local pre-loved clothes shop once the high streets are open again. Love and wander around the charity shops in Bude. Number 14, maximise your impact. So whenever you make a switch from something you were doing and the green alternative feels better, smells better or tastes better, make sure you tell all your friends. Social media has its downside, but as a tool for social change, it is incredibly effective. Just look at 2 Minute Beach Clean for an example of that. Never doubt the power of sharing a petition, a post or a film on social media. Whether it's a quick video recorded on your phone, a rushed photo or a work of art, get it out there. Share your solutions. Oh, there's 15. There's one more. I said it was 14. I don't know why there's 15 here. I'll give you this one. Number 15, avoid burnout and transform eco-anxiety by finding your groove. Bending yourself out of shape to do volunteer work or actions that don't suit you isn't going to light you up. But doing something you love, in my case writing, or that makes you shine will be irresistible. Thank you. Build on your strengths, do what comes naturally to you and be who you are. Help others tell stories in a way that's unique to you. Knitting or fundraising, scientific research or filmmaking, cooking or writing. Wherever your talents lie, you can make them count by applying them to saving the world. So there you go. I hope that's been interesting for you. I hope you haven't fallen asleep. I hope you've got some ideas and things that you can go away and do and make a difference yourself. And I hope we get to see each other in person at some point. Obviously, I can't see you. You can see me. If you see me in Bude in the summer, I'll be down soon. Please do come up and say hello or buy me a drink. Take care. Bye.